Welcome to my balcony garden and farm. If you haven't been here before, this is a balcony garden in London, UK, in Vauxhall. So very much an urban garden. So this is, if you have a balcony, if you live in London and you have a balcony that looks similar and you don't have a garden but you want to start one, this is for you. Just some tips, not advice necessarily, because it all depends on your circumstances, but this is what I've learned from setting this up. I was new to this as well. I've been doing this for about 2 years, since 2020, and just thought I'd share some of the things I've learned in case it's useful to anybody who wants to do something similar. So I have some top 10 tips, plus maybe a bonus, on how to set up an edible garden or a mini farm on a balcony. Number one is, before you even start, try to say you're thinking about containers, because this will be container gardening. Think of what you can reuse and repurpose for pots and containers. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy stuff. I mean, you can if you want, but there's plenty of free stuff that you probably have at home. For example, these two orange tubs there. This bucket, as you can see, is for mopping, and I have two of these. This is where the lavender is, also where my lemon balm. These buckets are two of almost, maybe another one. Actually, no, I haven't used that one. So I've got three that could be used for container gardening. So if you have something like that, the buckets that you use for mopping. Oh, this is the third one where the rosemary is. So this is another bucket. So you can basically turn that into a pot. And if you don't have any, another option is to go to your local nursery. And the one nearest to me is Walworth, and they have a section for donations where people donate containers, and that's where I got, for example, this purple one. So I donated a small amount to get that, and I've got a few other things. That's green, that long green plate there, base, also was a donated item. Plus I've got something else as well which I've forgotten. So if you go to your local nursery, there should be a place where people donate containers that they don't want, and you can use that. Everything else is just stuff I'm reusing, repurposing, like this thing here that used to, I think it had flour or something in there, and these two containers as well. The bottom one was, I just got from, I found it thrown away near where I live. So people throw away stuff all the time. I just grab it if it can be used. So top tip is, you don't have to buy containers to start this. You can just reuse and repurpose what you already have and get free ones from your local nursery. Number two is grow herbs. So you can see from almost everything I'm growing here are herbs. You know, this is coriander or cilantro, this is parsley, various types of mint, nettle. Almost everything is herbs, because herbs are very hardy. They're less susceptible to bugs. They are medicinal too. I really believe in that, and that's also how they protect themselves from bugs. So the smells, the essential oils, the bitterness, all of that protects them from bugs, and also protects us from various conditions. And they are very much they look after themselves, even with, you know, I water this maybe once every week or 2 weeks sometimes. And herbs are very easy to look after. They grow fast, especially mint, so very easy to grow herbs, and they can tolerate shade as well, especially things like mint, certain seasonal things like coriander, parsley, even lavender, and rosemary. You know, these are Mediterranean plants that are surviving on my balcony, and I don't really get much. So it's about nearly 2 p.m. now, and the sun has gone behind that building, so I only get some morning and some afternoon light, direct sunlight. So if lighting is a limitation, then herbs are a very good option. You know, flowers and things probably wouldn't survive here anyway. And you can get those herbs. I don't grow them from seeds, I just get them from the supermarket. So if you go to any UK supermarket, you can get the ones in pots, you know, from basil, for example, this coriander, this parsley, even rosemary and things you can get from supermarkets in pots. So you'd bring them, you can do that very easy, a couple of pounds. You would leave them on your balcony or where you're going to grow them for maybe a week to acclimatize them in their own pots, and then you'd repot them into a bigger pot. And that should be it. So you can start herbs right now and you will have a balcony garden. There are certain herbs you can't get in supermarkets, I have found, and one that I couldn't find near me anyway was sage. So you can see I've got two pots. So there's one sage here and another one there. These I got from my local nursery, Walworth. So try and get as many as you can from a supermarket, and what you can't find, like sage, also lavender, you can get from your local nursery. And I wouldn't grow herbs from seeds if you are in this kind of setup. You can if you want to, but it's just quicker and easier to grow them from starts or seedlings. Number 3 is grow microgreens. Microgreens are very easy, very fast. I've done a couple of videos on them if you go back to my channel, so I don't have any at the moment, but those you would need to grow from seeds. Again, reuse containers. I use when you buy, for example, strawberries and other types of berries, they come in these plastic containers. I've got an example here, like these ones. You can use those to grow microgreens. Just put some soil and put the seeds in. Within a week, 7 days, you'd be ready to harvest them. That's how easy they are. And you can grow most things as microgreens, including broccoli, sunflower, lettuce, all kinds of things. Super nutritious and expensive in restaurants, and also in supermarkets. And they are microgreens. You don't need much space or much soil. So I think microgreens are one of the best things to grow if you are limited in space and you want to grow something nutritious. So I'd really recommend them. And I don't have any right now, like I said, but if you go back to my channel, you'll find a couple of videos on how I've done that. Again, reusing, repurposing what I already have. and you can get seeds from, say, home base or from local nursery. Number 4, I would say grow leeks or spring onions or anything in the onion family, maybe apart from garlic, because that takes about 9 months. So I would say regrow leeks and spring onions. So again, you would buy these from the supermarket, eat most of it, put the base in soil, and you will have onions growing. And onions, you know, most of us use them on a regular basis. So having them growing, it would save you money, and they grow fast. And these two are about to flower, probably because they're about to die. I've harvested several times from here. Maybe this is the 4th time I'm about to harvest. This is new, this big chunky one, but these two I've harvested from since autumn, and it's now April, almost end of April. So the fact that it's flowering probably means it's about to die. So it will flower and it will die. But yeah, onions, especially leeks and spring onions, which I don't have at the moment. I pulled them out, but I had 2 spring onions there, and chives. Again, because these are things we eat regularly, it makes sense to grow things that you eat regularly. And again, you just buy from the supermarket and keep regrowing. So it's not much effort. Number 5 is cover your soil with mulch. So any kind of cover, maybe not any kind, but it's important to cover your soil, because you know, you will see this if you follow gardening channels. That's one of the best ways to maintain good soil, stop weeds from growing, protect the microbiome in your soil, and regulate the temperature and the water. So I cover everything. Again, you don't have to buy mulch. I use the shells from ground nuts or peanuts and pistachio nuts, and I've used this in my indoor plants as well. It looks good, it's organic, it's natural, it will gradually decompose and feed the soil. And I'm reusing, repurposing, instead of, you know, I'd normally throw away those things. So that's what I would recommend. But you can use other materials, dried leaves. I've made a video of dried cypress leaves. So get creative, or you can pick stones from the beach and cover your soil that way. So you don't have to buy mulch. Use what you have or reuse, but make sure you cover your soil. It will save you time, effort, protect your soil, and you don't have to water as much, and it's just a very good practice. And for example, for my nasturtiums, I have covered with some stones. Don't know if you can see them. So this is probably the only one that's not covered with the shells from the pistachio nuts. And I've used leca as well in some of my other pots as an experiment. So that's tip number 5, cover your soil, no matter how small. Number 6 is compost juice. Make compost juice, and I have a video about this again if you go back to my channel. Just because you have small space doesn't mean you can't make compost. So you can use food scraps and newspaper. Just make a good mix of carbon, nitrogen, and blend it. If you have a blender, add water, blend it, and that will speed up the decomposition process very a lot. And you don't have to use it straight away. For example, if you make that juice in winter, you can add it to soil that's resting, which is what I did here, for example. So I added my compost juice to the 2 pots, the black one and green one. I did this back in, I think, November, December, because at the time the plants were not growing, most of my plants, so it didn't make sense to add fertilizer to them. So now this, because I've added the juice to this, it would have been, you know, the worms and other microbiomes would have broken it down even more, and the soil will be ready to use soon, probably now. So even you can experiment with composting, and you can adapt it to your own environment, and you can make compost using your blender. So watch my video on that, you'll see. So again, that means you don't have to buy fertilizer. You can use your own food scraps, speed up the process. You don't have to have a compost pile or none of that stuff that people do when they have, you know, lots of space. So it's definitely possible to make your own fertilizer as well, even if you live in an apartment. Number 7, I would say, is learn from YouTube. So I guess that's why you are here. Excuse the noise. I learn everything, or almost everything, from YouTube. So you can do a course, there are other options, but I found YouTube, lots of gardening channels. Even you can start your own. Why not document your journey? I haven't found a London balcony gardener with a similar setup, growing edibles, so that's sort of why I started this channel. But yeah, you can learn a lot from YouTube. Number 8, another place to learn from is by volunteering at your local nursery or city farm. Again, I have videos on some of the ones that I go to. My nearest city farm is Vauxhall City Farm and Oasis Waterloo. I have learned a lot from going there and volunteering, working with some of the volunteers there. It's a really good way to learn and practice some of the things that you can't necessarily do on a small scale on a balcony. And you can also get some starts and seedlings from there, so while also doing good for the community and doing something that's very satisfying. So find your local nursery or city farm, visit, see if you can volunteer. Number 9, this is sort of philosophical, but I would say start before you're ready, because you're probably never ready to do most things in life. And you might think, I don't have this, I don't have that, but if you look around, you probably have containers, and you can just go and get some herbs from the supermarket, and that's it. You're ready to start. And start small and just gradually build up. You'll see if you go back to my earlier videos, I started very small with what I had. It wasn't a grand plan. I wasn't really ready, but eventually I got here, and there's still more to do, but just start before you're ready. Like most things in life, you figure it out and you learn as you go along. No need to delay. For example, right now we're at the end of April, so we're really going into the growing season soon. So if you start now, and you will have your garden ready while the weather is still good. I started mine, I think, around end of summer, beginning of August, beginning of autumn, and it worked out fine. I loved growing during autumn, actually, because there wasn't as much pest pressure. So that's another tip, actually. You can start once the season has passed, if you don't want to deal with pests and the heat and all of that. So autumn is so I think they call it the second spring, is a good time to start your garden. Number 10 sort of relates to the first tip, and that is try and make your gardening effort zero waste. Treat it like a mini regenerative farm, where you leave the place better than you found it. This is just a personal thing for me, but I prefer not to buy things and reuse and repurpose as much as possible, and having a place like this helps me because I can reuse some food scraps. It helps me minimize waste. I don't really buy much for this garden. I just reuse and repurpose. So it's almost like a way of life. This is a way to live more sustainably, to be a bit more self-sufficient, and as much as you can to try and keep it diverse. You know, don't just grow one thing or two. If you have space, biodiversity is important. It would help you with balancing things, and nature balances itself. The pests will sort of keep each other in check. So treat it like a mini farm, minimal waste, and keep it diverse, and apply some of those principles that you would if you had a bigger, say, farm. So even on this scale, biodiversity, soil health, and sustainability are actually important. So bear that in mind. Don't go out and spend too much money on trying to do something like this. I mean, you can if you want to. Everyone has a choice. But if you're trying to live as, you know, to keep waste down, this is a good way to practice that, by reusing, repurposing as much as you can, and just being creative. And that's it. Those are the top 10 tips. I hope it's helpful, and I hope more people, I mean, if you look around me in this building, for example, there aren't that many people using their balconies to to grow food. So I think there's more and more of us could be doing this if there's time. So I hope there will be many more balcony farmers in London, and I'm doing my bit, and I hope this helps somebody to start a balcony garden. Thank you for watching. Bye.